Bonjour Chris, comment ça va?
Ça va bien, merci. À tout.
Ça va très bien, merci. Yeah, so we're at Sibos 2019 in London, the largest, biggest, meanest Sibos ever, I believe. And you've been to a few, I guess, in the last few years, right?
Yeah, from my liver, I think I've been to too many.
We'll ask you the same questions a couple of days, on Wednesday or something like that after the big party. So Chris, the Troublemaker Skinner, that's your business card now, right?
That's me. Officially, I go around and poke my fingers where they shouldn't be poked in the banking industry.
Yes, you do. I mean, so you've got a great reputation among the fintech influencers globally, shaking things, pushing people, trying to help senior executives at banks to rethink, maybe step back and then invest money to create better experiences for their customers. Is that fair to say?
I just like to shake the tree and to take a position. And quite often I don't actually agree with the position that I take myself. But I just do it to try and create the discussion and come up with different answers.
It's all about conversations and sharing some insights, which helps, again, foster those very dynamic and organic conversations, so very useful. We're at Sibos, again, the biggest ever, I believe. You're always usually very busy during Siboses, so could you please share a bit of your crazy schedule this year?
It's interesting this year because I normally come to Sibos at the behest of Swift. But for various reasons I've not been for a few years, so it's good it's in London, except that I now live in Poland, in Warsaw, so it's a little bit of a haul for me, but I came over here working with quite a lot of the exhibitors, so I'm signing books this afternoon, I'm doing a number of sessions around dinners and roundtables talking about how I see the world and how the world is changing for banking and transaction banking in particular. And then looking forward to the final explosive party at the end of the week, and also attending a bit of the inner tribe, which I haven't seen for a few years.
I was going to say, because apparently this year I didn't have a chance to go on the inner tribe area, but it's supposed to be quite grand and even better than last year in Toronto. So you'll tell me maybe in the next few days, or I'll tell you if I have time to do that. So you've been very busy, you're well known. You've been working as well on a book, I think, for the last few months, I believe. We already touched it a few months back. What's the latest status about your book?
So I kind of have a cycle of how I work. So I blog every single day, mainly because eventually I edit the blog into a book. And so it tends to be every 2 years. And the latest initiative really came out of the fact that when Digital Human was finished a couple of years ago, I started to get quite frustrated with how everybody said that banks are dumb and stupid and aren't changing and they don't get digital, including me. So I kind of thought, you know what, not every bank is dumb and stupid. There are some that actually are really intelligent and smart. So I wrote a list of the ones I thought were intelligent and smart and got to the 9th line and finished. Because I can only actually write down 9 names, to be honest. And I approached those 9 names as big banks. No, I'm not talking small ones. And 5 of the biggest 50 banks in the world agreed to be part of the project, which is all about doing digital transformation in banking. And JP Morgan Chase, BBVA, ING, DBS Singapore, and China Merchants Bank all came on board. I've interviewed them all in depth at C-level mainly. And out of that came around 35 key observations that I've made of distinct things that happened in those 5 banks and the other banks that I talked to around the world, but specifically in those 5, that allowed them to embrace digital transformation. And it kind of falls into 4 big buckets, which is you work out what to do, work out how to do it better, which sounds really trite and simple, but actually takes 5 to 10 years to go through that cycle for these banks. It's a massive transformation program.
And when you say, that's interesting, when you say 35 key takings, or is it like commonalities between those 5? I mean, you see the same DNA or the same willingness or the same processes, the same focus on culture, or do you see a lot of commonalities, or do you see very distinct approaches to reach the same goal almost, is to drive innovation, transformation, meaningful transformation for the users or the customers?
Yeah, I mean, not everything is true of all of the banks. So some were doing very specific, unique things within their institution, like DBS that talks about the attitude of a 26,000 fintech startup in their bank and creating joyful banking. You don't often hear joyful banking thrown around. But there are a lot of commonalities. So in terms of, for example, working out what to do, they all seem to do the same thing, which is to go to the companies that they respect that are innovative in digital.
Outside of banking.
Outside banking. and go and visit with them to find out how they do things. So they all went and visited Spotify and Netflix and Amazon and Alibaba and Tencent, and some fintech startups like the Stripes of this world and Squares, to see how they're operating, how they structure, how they deal with management and organization. And then that goes into the second phase of how to do it, which is, can we take what they're doing and internalize that into our own organization? It's not easy, but nearly all of them ended up with flattened organizations that were far more agile. I think ING summarized it best, which is they used to have 30,000 people working in a bank. Now they've got 3,000 teams of 10 people working in the bank, and it's much easier to deal with 3,000 teams and get them to align than 30,000 individuals.
Can you think of a common characteristic of those CEOs or at C-level? I don't know if it's
I mean,
word or like...
The one common thing across all of them is that they get technology, and many of them have had experience specifically in dealing with technology or working for a technology or telecommunications company. And certainly one of the things I keep saying is, if you're going to be a digital bank and you only have banking executives leading the institution, you'll never be a digital bank, because you've got to have digital people leading the institution as well. And some of them have 2 or 3 people in the leadership team who are having technology in their DNA, in their blood. BBVA were probably the exception, because BBVA have over half of their leadership team who are digital people. So they have a head of engineering, a head of data, a head of customer experience, a CIO, and equally on top of that, the CEO and the chairman have a background in technology and telecommunications. So the financial institutions that really get digital transformation have digital people in the leadership team.
In 10 years' time, maybe, could you foresee like a CTO becoming CEO then of a big organization, like a big bank?
I'm not sure whether it'd be a CTO or a CIO. I often say that the CIO or CTO is actually the biggest block to transformation, because they're trying to keep everything as stable as it can be, and they don't want to change everything. What I can see is maybe more and more executives coming from outside the financial industry and leading financial institutions, specifically people coming in from the Googles or the Amazons of this world, to actually become the CEO of a bank. Now that hasn't happened so far, but we are seeing a lot of the executive senior management within a lot of the banks coming from Silicon Valley, coming from fintechs, coming from outside the industry, and I think we'll see a lot more of that.
Okay. Be interesting to follow that, and of course read your book first. One of the last questions is, how much are we missing some kind of transparent index, for lack of better words, to gather the critical insights on the industry globally from a fintech standpoint, to help identify weak spots, the best performing cities or organizations? Is there a big need for that? And who would be the best positioned entity come up with that and offer those unique insights, very valuable insights to bank executives, fintech CEOs, and so on and so forth? What's your view?
Well, there's a lot of media aggregation of news, and it's quite interesting. Some people say to me they don't see how to get fintech news. I get nearly all my news via Twitter, to be honest, because that's what I choose as my preferred media, and a lot of my connections, like your good self, give me a lot of information that gives me insight. Equally, following my blog, downloading Fintech Insiders or other podcasts, being engaged is a great way to keep up with those things. But the one thing that I hoped would have more impact, and to date it hasn't, is the regulators and the innovative networks collaborating and bringing everything together into some form of hub. So you had Innovate Finance and InnoTribe and others creating a network of all of the innovate hubs of the world, but I haven't really seen the results of that. I don't know if you have.
Not quite.
No. And what there really should be is one place I can go where I can see everything. And the same, I think, with the regulatory structure, that the FCA and MAS in Singapore and the Hong Kong Monetary Authority and Dubai Financial Centre, if they could all collaborate and create a hub of knowledge, then it'd be far easier to keep up with this stuff.
So like a global fintech alliance on steroid?
Maybe, or maybe just someone who's a really good blogger.
Okay. So I think Chris is happy to, to apply for that role. So you'd be the fintech ambassador of the world, and you put everything together. You've got an unbiased source of information. You already managed to produce content at at an equal, pace or rate. That's amazing what you're doing on blogging anyway. I've never been able to contemplate doing so much. Thank you very much for your time, Chris. Again, all the best for your book. I, for one, can't wait to read it. We say roughly in spring 2020 it should be available?
Yeah, it should be coming out spring 2020, and we'll be doing a big blast across all media if we can. So I'm sure I'll come back and have a chat with you next year about it.
And Fintech Power 50 and Visible Banking, which is coming back, will be happy, of course, to augment all the promotion you will make on social media. So thank you so much, Chris, as usual, and have a good Sibos. Merci.
Merci bien, Christophe. Bonne journée.
Toi aussi.